You guys know I love podcasting and listening to podcasts, and I'm guessing if you're listening to this that you love podcasts too. Have you ever considered podcasting yourself? It is a great way to reach your audience, grow your know, like and trust factor, and not need to show your face unless you want to. If it is something you've thought about but you don't know where to start, then head over to becomeapodcaster.uk/BAP quiz, BAP quiz, to access a 2-minute quiz that will help you work out what type of podcast might suit you. That's becomeapodcaster.uk/BAP quiz.
Focus and simplicity. Once you get there, you can move mountains. Steve Jobs. You're listening to the Mindset and Action podcast, bringing you the map to grow and streamline your business in 2023. I'm your host, Donna Eade, your go-to gal for all things podcasting, planning and productivity. And I'll be bringing you all that plus mindset goodness from experts with knowledge to share. Let's make 2023 the year of success in your business. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I am so super happy to have you here today. Today, we are talking about something that is stealing your time. You may have seen it in the title, but just play along with me for a moment. Have you ever looked for a quick fix to save time? Taken shortcuts only to have to go back and do it the proper way, which means that you spent longer than if you just did it right in the first place? We have all been there, my friend. But what if I told you that there was a sneaky time stealer stealing precious seconds from your day all day, every day, and that time adds up to a significant amount, and I'm going to tell you what that is later? You'd want to stop that time stealer, right? Well, as you may have guessed from the title of this podcast, we are talking about context switching. So what is context switching? Context switching is the art of clicking on a new button, basically. For example, I have 7 tabs open on my browser right now. They are showing the podcast episodes that I am hoping to batch today. And if I was to click on one of the other episodes, that's a context switch. So I have moved from one page to another. If I was to open up my phone and go from WhatsApp to Facebook, that is a context switch. It's switching apps. If I was to go from an email, click on a link and go to a video, that is a context switch. So it's the action of changing from what it is that you are currently doing to something else. And there is a process that has to happen in the brain for us to be able to do that. Now, our brains work super, super quickly. However, when you are changing from, example, your email to YouTube, they look very different. The buttons are all in a different place. They do different things. So your brain has to make that adjustment to the app that it's looking at. And I have talked before about how when you change what you're doing, if you're jumping from one thing to another, it takes your brain a moment to refocus. So for example, if you were to context switch and jump from a document that you're working on to your email because you hear a notification go off that you've got a new email, you go into that email, you read that email, you've got to reply to it, you're thinking about that reply, you come back to your work, you're suddenly like, where was I? And you have to take that time. So there is actually extra time attached to this context switching that we're not going to talk about today. And that is that time that it takes for you to get back into the thing that you were doing, because you've got to sit there and think, however microseconds it is, however long it is, you've got to think, okay, where was I? What was I talking about? Okay, let's get back to it. And it could take as quick as me saying that. It could take you a minute or so to get back to what you were thinking. You might have to reread the paragraph you just wrote to get back into the swing of things. So that time isn't accounted for when we're talking about context switching. So this context switching is actually stealing a lot more time than you realize. So if we forget the getting back into what it was that you were doing in the first place, one study done on the topic discovered that it takes just over 2 seconds to switch from one app to another, and our brains like making that connection that we've switched and what we have to do on this new app. Now I want you to take a guess at the amount of times a day somebody makes those switches. So use yourself as an example, and I will give you a minute by describing my morning of context switching. And I want you to actually think about how many times on average you think a person context switches a day. You probably are not going to remember everything you do. I'm probably going to miss things out when I tell you my morning. But once you have a number, I would love for you to pause this podcast, screenshot it, share the episode on your Instagram stories, tag me, Donna_Eade, EADE_, and share with me in that the number of context switching you think takes place, just the number. And I would love for you to do that before you continue to listen to the podcast. Play along. I would love to see your answers. So for me, my morning, let's see, I wake up and I pick up my phone and I open it, and I am still in the Calm app because I listen to sleep stories before I go to sleep. So I will go back to the front screen of Calm and I will play my daily J. So that is the first thing that I will do. Then once I have finished that, I will context switch and go to usually Instagram and check out the stories of people in there. Then I might hop over to Facebook and check out if I've got any notifications over there. Then I might go back to Calm and look at doing a meditation. Then I go to my book and I read my book. Then I will get up, and depending on the day, let's say it was this morning, I did mat Pilates. So I go onto my laptop and I open up my calendar, and then I open up Zoom from my calendar. Then I will close Zoom at the end of the class. Then I will go into my email. Then I will go to maybe YouTube while I'm eating my breakfast. Then I will go back to, say, my documents so that I can do some scripting for some podcasts. Then I might have an idea whilst I'm doing that scripting that I need to check a fact or something else. So I might open up my browser to go into Google and search for an answer. So we have got 12 context switches in just getting me set up for my morning. That is not even in my work day. Now, it might surprise you to hear that the average person context switches 1,200 times a day. 1200. Can you believe that? Were you anywhere close with your guess? So like I said, this is anything from bouncing from tab to tab, opening a document spreadsheet, task manager to WhatsApp. It's happening so often you don't even realise in it. And just in saying that to you, I've forgotten that I will usually open WhatsApp as well, because I usually have messages from my family chat in the morning. So there will be usually WhatsApp messages being pinged about all morning between me, my mum and my sister and my daughter and my other sister. And I could open WhatsApp 3 or 4 times in the morning. So I completely forgot about that. And that is only because my sister is currently doing training for her new job and she's not very active in the morning. So it's actually been a bit quiet recently, but there's normally a lot of WhatsApp action happening first thing in the morning as well. So you can see from this that this context switching is sneaky thievery. You just don't see it. But the truth is that these seconds add up. And according to the stats, we are losing 40 minutes a day to context switching. 40 minutes. So you might not think that's a lot, but how many times have you said, I haven't got time to exercise? How many times have you not stopped for lunch because you don't have time? How many times do you tell your kids, can we do that tomorrow? I haven't got time today. All of these things where we say we haven't got time, that 40 minutes could make the difference between us being able to do that thing that we haven't got time for. So that's crazy to me. Now, I'm going to give you some tips on how you can claim back that 40 minutes. But before we get there, it's worth noting that 40 minutes a day adds up to 4 hours a week. 4 hours a week. That's half a regular working day. And it adds up to 5 working weeks over the course of a year. 5 weeks just hopping from one thing to another. That sounds absolutely ridiculous, doesn't it? But it's true. We have all the modern tech these days to make our lives quote unquote easier, but it's actually swallowing up more of our lives that we can't get back. And it is time to take back control and save some of those precious seconds going forward. Because at the end of the day, you can't get back the time you've already lost. And technology is supposed to make our lives easier. But the way we use it is actually being a detriment to us. So how can we change this? Let's have a look. Here are 4 ways that you can reduce your context switching. This is how I'm doing it in my world. So you might want to adopt it for yours. You might have some other ideas on how you can do it. But these are my 4. Okay, so number 1, plan your days. At the start of your day, plan it out so that you know what you have to do. You can then plan it to work with the least amount of context switching. For example, if you know you have to email someone back, take that time to be in your inbox and do everything that you need to do in your inbox, and don't jump in and out of it all day long. So for me, at the moment, I am trying out the Full Focus Planner by Michael Hyatt. I will link it in the show notes for you if you're interested in taking a look. I'm quite enjoying it, but as with anything new, I'm always there for the shiny object. So I'm really enjoying it at the moment. I'm about 3 weeks in. So I will do a full review at the end of the quarter once I've finished the full planner, see if I used it or what I liked best about it and what I didn't. So I'll do a full review of the Full Focus Planner in about 2.5 months' time. But that's what I'm using at the moment. But I would say use anything that works for you. I have a free downloadable planner that I'll also link in the show notes for you. This is what I was using before I started using the Full Focus Planner. And all transparency, I didn't pay for the Full Focus Planner. I was gifted it, which is why I'm trying it out. But before that, I was using my free downloadable planner. So I will link that in the show notes for you if you want to go and grab that. So plan your day so that you can make sure that you're doing everything in one spot all at once and not dipping in and out of different things all day long. Number 2 is the art of calendar blocking. So this is something that I've actually done for the last few years, and that is the idea of grouping like for like together in your calendar. You could take it a step further and theme your days so that you're only doing one particular thing on a day rather than grouping like for like. But I also think that halfway through your day, your lunchtime spot is a good breaking point if you wanted to change your tasks. So for example, today I am just recording podcasts. That is all I'm doing today. I don't plan on opening anything else. Like I said, I have got 7 tabs open, which are all my notes for the episodes that I'm going to record today. And I'm just going to go through that. I have not opened my email yet this morning. I have not opened YouTube. I have not looked at social media since I sat down at my desk to start the recording session, and I will not open anything else until I have finished my recordings. So by doing that, I am going to make sure that I am using all of my time and I'm not going to have any context switching through this bar changing the tab to my next podcast episode, which is just words. So it's not too much of a strain. It's not going to take too long to do that. So you can do that. But I think that a AM PM block is really useful as well. So if you wanted to spend a morning on scripting podcasts, for example, you could do that. And then if you wanted to spend the afternoon on client work, you could book that into the afternoon so that you are not jumping between, like having a client at 10, a client at 12, a client at 3, and then trying to fit your scripting in between that, because that is going to be a lot of jumping about and you're going to lose time there. So that is a way of doing it, by blocking it for what you're going to do in the morning before your lunch and what you're going to do after your lunch. And you can also then work with how you feel best during the day. So if you're more creative in the afternoon after your lunch, maybe you want to save your creative time for that. If you are more alert and more vibrant first thing in the morning, then maybe if you want to do social media lives or videos or things like that, that might be something you do in the morning. So do take into account how you feel during the day and what that actually looks like, what you would be best doing at those different times of the day. The third thing is stay out of your email and off social media. These are some of the biggest context switching, stealing apps of all time. With your email, you are constantly being encouraged to click out of email and go onto different people's websites, either to read a blog or to listen to a video or listen to a podcast. And on social, they're also asking you to click this, click that, go here, go there. So there is so much context switching that happens when you are in email or when you are on social media. So I would suggest staying off these time suckers. So that is what I try to do. Like I said, I've not been in my email yet this morning, and it is currently, well, it's not even morning anymore. It is 12:15 and I have not looked at my email yet today. I have been on social media. I'm part of a challenge this week, or I'm watching a little challenge thing that I'm doing. So I was on there earlier, but I am not going to be on it during this whole recording session. I'm not going on it. I've got my phone on silent so that I can't see or hear notifications. And that brings me to my next tip, which is turn off all your notifications, because every ping is a context switch, unless you're somebody who just ignores every ping. But when I have my phone pinging, I always glance over at it, whether I go and actually click on whatever it is or not. If I hear a ping, I will look at my phone. That is a context switch. You have moved your eyes from one thing, you're focusing on something else, and then you're coming back to what you're doing. So even if you don't push the button, you have context switched. So turn off your notifications when you are in a block. So for example, for me, like I said, I'm recording these sessions. I don't want pings going off just because I don't want that in the podcast, obviously, but also because I don't want the distraction. So I've got my phone on silent so that I won't hear them. So you can do that, or you can put your phone in focus mode or something like that, so that during those times of focus, you are not getting those notifications. Now, most of the apps you can turn notifications off for. So obviously for WhatsApp, I don't do that, but for social media, I do. I have the notifications off. I don't want my phone pinging all day telling me that I've got notifications. I go in at specific times during the day, usually sort of lunchtime and then at the end of the day, to check my notifications to see what's going on. But I don't do that constantly throughout the day, because I don't get those pings to tell me that there's new notifications to pay attention to. The other thing to remember with that is that nothing urgent is coming through on a notification. We all have this kind of desire to respond immediately as soon as we hear a ping or as soon as we see a message come up. We want to respond straight away. We do not need to. You know, back in the day, guys, I don't mean to hark back to an age-old day, but it is an age-old day where we used to send letters, and you used to have to wait for a reply via letter, and the letters were going by horse and carriage, so they would take ages to get to you. And could you imagine, like, I don't even know how they dealt with it back then, to be honest with you. But if somebody was ill, a letter would go in a mail, and you may get a messenger that would gallop off with it to take it to that person. So it would get there quicker than going through the snail mail route. But it would take that messenger hours and hours to get to where they were going. They were on a horse that needed to take breaks and be fed. So it might take a couple of days for the message to get to the person. And then that person needs to respond. So, you know, we are in a day now where if somebody doesn't respond back within a few seconds, seconds, we're like, well, that's rude. And it's not rude. People are living their lives. We do not have to respond to everything, within seconds. It just doesn't need to happen. If something is so urgent that you are needed, somebody will call you. And I have my phone set up so that I have my special people that will get through regardless of what my phone's mode is. So they ring once, if they ring again, it will come through to them. And I've told them that if you ring me twice, it will come through. But if you ring me once and I don't answer, don't think I'm ignoring. If you need me, ring me again and it will come through. And so you will probably have a function like that on your phone. That's for emergencies. Nothing else is that important. It's your family that are going to need you for emergencies. There is never a work, depending on what you do, there is never a work crisis that is going to come through on a notification. Okay, so just remember that when you're thinking about these notifications and how much time they are sucking out of your day. The other thing, the final thing, number 4, is simplify the apps that you use. We use so many different apps. And I don't know about you, but I really feel the stress of digital clutter. And it's a time suck. So for me, like having to hop from this app to that app to this app to that app to get something done is just stress. It's just, and it looks too busy. I don't like having loads of tabs open on my computer. I don't like having loads of stuff on my desktop. A friend of mine shared her desktop with me a few weeks back, and I almost had a panic attack. I was like, what on earth is that? How do you get anything done? Her desktop was covered in folders, and I was just like, no. In fact, I could probably go and clear up my desktop again, to be honest with you, because there's probably two buttons that I use on the regular, and the rest of it I don't. And I only have like 2 columns of icons down the side of my computer, so I could definitely get rid of some. But that stuff, it all stresses me out. Just like the clutter in your home can stress you out, the digital clutter that you collect on your computer can add stress that's subconscious. You don't think it's stressing you out. You don't think that it's bothering you. But just like when you really clear out a room and you walk into it just after you've cleaned it and it looks spectacular and you can just breathe, you get that same sense when you clear out your computer as well. So having 5 or 6 different apps that you work with during the day or more, I think a lot of us work with a lot more, can really create stress, certainly creates a lot of context switching, and therefore sucks your time. So for example, I had an appointment app. I used Calendly. I had an email service provider. I used MailChimp. I had a website host, and my website was done through WordPress. I had a web theme provider that had their own website that had tutorials on how to use the theme and get the best out of the theme. I had a course platform. I had no customer relationship manager. So my notes were in all sorts of places on my computer, from spreadsheets to other apps that weren't really CRMs, just collecting information. And now I breathe a sigh of relief because I have a platform that does all of that in one through FEA Create. Now I will link FEA Create in the show notes for you if you want to find out more. But FEA has been a game changer for me. Not only do I now only have one payment going out each month, so I've not got to see, has this person taken their money, has that person, have I got an invoice for this, etc. It's one payment going out each month. Everything is in the same place and it all works through the same platform. So it all looks the same. So whereas Calendly has different buttons, a different look and feel to MailChimp, and MailChimp has a different look and feel to WordPress, FEA Create looks the same. So when I'm in the calendar, it still has the look and feel of my website. It still has the look and feel of my email system. So it's a lot easier for the brain to switch between doing an email and creating a funnel because it's all on the same platform. So I don't have to leave the platform to do it. It's just moving to a different part of the platform, and it looks similar and works in a similar way to my emails. So it's easier for me to do that switch. So I love that. And the great thing about FEA is that their customer support is absolutely amazing. To me, it feels like an extension of my own team. In fact, when I go in to do a chat with them, if I've got a question, I will open up the chat box and I will say, hey team, and that's how I'll start it, because I don't know who's going to actually answer the question. So I just say, hey team, hope you're having a great day. And I start my question, and that is what it is like. They are so helpful. They're so knowledgeable about the platform they're building, and they are constantly adding new things. They have a whole training platform so you can go through and set things up step by step when you get in there, because everything new is always a learning curve. You know, you're not going to be able to get it right first time necessarily. You're not going to be able to understand everything straight away, but once you have got the basics down, they are always there at the end of the chat box for you to help you Monday to Friday. So it's a great service. Both of my websites are built on FEA, and I love that. So if you head over to donnae.com or becomeapodcaster.uk, you can see what an FEA website looks like. But I will leave the link to FEA Create in the show notes if you're interested in moving your stuff over. And they also have a lot of people that keep their website, their WordPress website, but they build their courses and they have their emails and their funnels and their CRM on FEA Create. So you can combine it with another if your website is really working for you, and if you've had a web developer create it for you, so you're not really sure how it all works on the back end and you don't want to mess with things like that. I know it can be complicated, but you could sign up to FEA Create, use that with your WordPress website, and use FEA Create for everything else so that you can bring everything else into one platform. So look at how you can simplify your platforms. You know, are you somebody who uses Google Suite and Microsoft, for example? Because I used to do that. I used to have my Word documents, but then I would have docs in Google as well. I stopped using Microsoft. I now solely use Google for all that stuff. Why? Because an Excel spreadsheet and a Google sheet work slightly differently, and the things that you want to do on them are in slightly different places and are called slightly different things in some cases. So there is a context switch and an actual brain fart, if I'm honest, when I go from one to the other. So I now exclusively use the Google Suite. It's great because I can save things out as Excel spreadsheets, and I can save things out as Word documents so that other people can read them without any issue. But I like to use Google, and that stops me having that switch between the two platforms. The other thing to look at is your social media. Do you have like 5 different social media platforms that you use? Do you actually use them all? I cancelled my Twitter account the other day, guys. I actually cancelled it, and I was relieved because I don't like Twitter. So why am I on Twitter? I don't like it. I don't like being there. I would literally schedule my posts to go up, and I wouldn't even go on Twitter to check that they've gone up. I just don't care about the platform. Don't like it. It's not a nice place for me to be. So I deleted it. So what are you doing when it comes to your social media? Are there platforms that you are redundant, that you're just there? Because I don't know about you, but once upon a time I was told, make sure you've got your social handle on all the different platforms. But if you're not using them, you don't need it. You don't need it. And there is something to be said for if you've got it, then nobody else can have it. And that means that there's nobody getting confused. But I think if you are talking to your audience on a regular basis, telling them where you are, then it shouldn't matter. Like, you will never hear me turn around and tell you to go over to my Twitter. I've never said that. I always say head over to my Instagram, Why? Because that's where I hang out the most. Do I have a presence on Facebook? Yes, I do. Do I like it over there? Not particularly. I keep it because it's good for the group aspect. I like having my groups over on Facebook, so I have a presence over there for that reason. But if you can reduce the number of social media apps that you're working on, then that's going to save you time when it comes to posting. It's also going to save you time when it comes to checking up on what your social medias are doing. So don't let tech steal 5 weeks of your life every year. Seriously, what could you do with 5 extra weeks? That is insane. Instead, theme your days to reduce your switching, plan those days to reduce the switching, stay out of your email and off of social and get those notifications switched off. Set a timer. So that's a really good little tip, is set a timer when you go into your emails or on social so that you just spend a small amount of time on there, do what you need to do and then get out of it. Simplify your systems and apps, and all of this will save you hours, if not weeks. And I hazard a guess that it will also help you focus better and achieve more. So those are my tips for you guys. I hope that helps. I hope this episode has been thought-provoking. Please leave some stars and a review on Apple Podcasts. It means the absolute world to me. And I will see you in the next episode, which I am actually recording now because your girl listens to her own advice and batching is your friend. I will be talking all about batching in a couple of weeks. So make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss out, and join the Pod Squad over at donnaeade.com/Pod Squad. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye for now. Don't forget to hit those stars and leave a review of the podcast where you listen if you found value in what you heard today. It's a free way you can help the podcast reach more people just like you.